You're watching Talking Treasures, a CTV Perth production. We're here at the Kalamunda Hotel and I'm here with expert Matt Donnelly, who's going to tell us a little bit about where to buy antiques in Perth.
Always starts at the basics, and its best way is to learn is from the grassroots. Don't ever be embarrassed about shopping at a swap meet, because lots of treasures are found at swap meets, op shops, second-hand shops, things like that. Always have a look around and try and see what you can find there first. Then you'd probably venture into somewhere like an auction house, like somewhere like where we run, weekly auctions, Hayes Auctioneers, Fremantle Auctioneers, number of auction houses in your local areas. It's a great place to go and sit and watch an auction, and it's a great way to learn what things are actually worth, because you'll see 1,000 items sold in one day. Other than that, really, good place to look is like the Yellow Pages. Look up all your local antique shops, go around shop by shop and see what they sell, see what they specialise in. A lot of people specialise in like clocks or furniture or china, Moorcroft or collectibles, or some of your bigger antique centres like Matilda's Antique Centre, the church, and they've got like 30 dealers under one roof. So you see a great variety of things selling under the one roof. But I love a good old-fashioned swap meet. We take our kids down there every Sunday, have a look around, see what we can find, and lots of people buying and selling there.
Swap meets can be a bit intimidating for people who aren't especially sure of what they're looking at. Is there an alternative for people who don't want to go there?
You can certainly get caught because you buy a reproduction and you take it in and you have it valued and you're bitterly disappointed. You don't want to buy another antique in your life. But a person who wants to stay at home, I reckon eBay is the best place. Go into a search engine, whether it's Majolica, Royal Dalton, dog figurines, Aboriginal artefacts, whatever you want to search for, I guarantee hundreds of items will come up in eBay. It's a matter of registering with your credit card, making sure that buyer or seller has got some points against their name, which is good feedback. If there's good feedback, like item described well, will post, insures, great packaging, I would trust buying off that person. Give them your credit card, you buy the item, and then it arrives in your mail. And it's a brilliant way of collecting, and it's now opened the market up that people can collect things from all over the world, not just what they find in their own backyard here.
When buying an object off the internet that you can't actually examine yourself, what's the guarantee that you're going to be getting exactly what you have been told is there?
Well, firstly, you've got to learn to trust that buyer, and that comes by reading their feedback points and understanding that they're a genuine operator. But I would basically leave it a little bit to the professionals in asking questions like, has it been restored? Is it genuine? And if you don't see those words, then don't buy it. Because normally, if it's a reproduction or a fake, they simply won't say it's antique. So they'll say it's a nice figurine. And then if you see that, don't buy it. But if you see it's a nice antique figurine, it has no chips or it has no damage, not a problem. Because if you buy it and it's not as you describe it, you have them banned from the internet. And eBay traders work hard to build up their feedback, so there's no way that they'll go down the wrong path and sell you something that's not described correctly. But maybe stay away from buying china and porcelain that could be damaged, and stick to buying sort of, postcards or other collectibles, model cars, things like that we've seen on the show.
So basically, the more information you can find out about it, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once I bought a book on the internet, they said it was in, didn't say it was in bad condition or good condition. It arrived here and they'd been a heavy smoker all their life, and all the pages were yellow stained through the whole book, and it really wrecked the book for my purpose. So again, it's another lesson learned. You really have to ask that question if you're a book collector. So you live and learn those sort of things.
Thank you. And any last tips?
Cover the ground. Hop out there. Look in shops, op shops, auctions, everywhere you can go, and on the internet, and read lots of books on Carter's antiques and collecting, and across the time you'll become an expert.
There you go, some expert advice from Matt Donnelly.
On Talking Treasures, I've brought in some of my treasures. In this case, it's part of my comic collection. We've talked a number of times about comics on Talking Treasures, and we've basically talked about the issues of comics as they're published, the transitory nature that many comics have, that they're on newsprint paper, they're stapled together, and they're the sort of thing that librarians hated. It wasn't until the mid-1980s that this actually changed for comic books. There was from time to time a book published on a particular comic character or a particular aspect of the comic trade which happened in a hardcover that you could put in a library. But comics themselves didn't turn into hardcover books with ISBNs, that is international registrations for books, and a hardcover that can be put on a library shelf and easily housed until the mid-1980s. One of the guys responsible for that was a guy called Frank Miller. This is not one of his early works, it's a latter work. And Frank Miller's artwork is particularly interesting in its style. He tends to use brilliant colour. It's not that he's a colourist, he's got a colourist working with him, but he often uses a particularly splash panels of really quite intensity. And to tell a story, a story that's got a lot of action in it. So it's not surprising to find him here working with the Batman character that he loves and has worked on a number of times. When Frank Miller decided to work on Batman with a story called The Dark Knight Returns, he actually changed the nature of comic book publishing when this was collected together and put out in hardcover. It coincided with a number of other people creating comics who decided that this was the time to put out a hardcover book. That led to the field of comics being written in story arcs and published in monthly comics and then collected together into stories. This is a writer that I particularly like, whose work has been collected into hardcover comic books at the end of each story arc and published in hardcover books which can grace a library shelf or a collector's shelf. This is a book like any other for all intents and purposes, with a silk tie to show where you're up to and a presentation which is truly worthy of a library. But of all the material that I've got and had in recent years, artists have attracted my attention. This is Mobius. This is his version of Silver Surfer, one of the Marvel characters, and I must admit, for my money, this is a very lovely rendition of Silver Surfer. If you enjoy the tales, then you'll enjoy this sort of book, because the comic book colours and the storytelling is excellent when Mobius is working on it. There's also in a hardcover book some details about the production of the comic book itself. And of recent years, there's been creators working in the field who've used their work to actually tell stories in comic books which have been collected into hardcover. One of these is Jeff Smith and his work Bone, which came out in 9 volumes all told and has recently been released in one ginormous paperback. But for a library, for a collector, these first editions in hardcover of his black and white artwork are truly delightful. This is described as Tolkien meets Warner Brothers, published in comic book form, and the story is excellent. If you want to know more about comic books and even about these hardcover graphic novels and their history, then there are a number of books on the market which are detailing the rise of the new comic books. And one of the best of these is Doohan and Richardson's comic Between the Panels. Both of the characters who write this book have the company that's published it. That's what they own and work for. It's called Dark Horse. That's their logo, the kind of horse head at the bottom of the spine. And this is an encyclopedic work that inside details various aspects of comic makers, artists, and the history of various forms of the comic book. It's a lovely book, well worth having, well worth putting in a library, and it's a library book that enables you to understand the other comic books that you're placing within your own library, building your own collection of collectibles.
You're watching Talking Treasures, a CTV Perth production. Today we're at the Kalamunda Hotel and I'm with fine arts expert John Stringer. John, for the average person to tell the difference between a fake and an original painting, it can be quite difficult. Do you have any advice in trying to decide between the difference?
Yeah, it's not really a do-it-yourself thing without a lot of experience. The way you find these things out is simply by looking and looking and looking and looking at materials. I mean, museums are very good for that, art museums. If you want to know about printmaking, go and look at their lithographs and see if you can find your way through them, the difference between a lithograph and an etching and so on. So you can get the knowledge yourself, but if you want to know about printmaking, the best thing is to go and study it, to go and learn how to do it. But it's not so difficult for us people in the industry, but many people would not be able to tell the difference, for instance, between an oil painting or a watercolour and a reproduction. A reproduction always has a screen. That is, if you enlarge it sufficiently, it will start to break down into dots, such as you see in newspaper reproductions. Reproductions always have a very flat surface, no emphasis and so on, as you would get in a watercolour or a drawing or a painting. So if you don't have the expertise, talk to someone who does. Otherwise, you need to hang in there and spend years developing it.
Basic little telltale signs we could, someone needed to decide for themselves?
Well, I guess you need to, if you have a painting which is behind glass, you need to get it out from behind the glass if you can't tell whether it's an original or a reproduction. And you need to look very, very carefully at the surface. So I think the first thing is to get it out of the glass. But if you don't know, you need to get advice, because you can make serious mistakes. I've seen people who believe that they have originals, which turn out to be reproductions, because certain artworks have been very well reproduced. Of course, it's easier to reproduce a drawing than it is to reproduce an oil painting. But drawings can be done lithographically, and that is, a reproduction of a drawing can be done with the lithographic process, which is very close to the way drawings are done.
So it's really very difficult.
It is difficult.
To tell.
It's difficult. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much, John.
We're talking treasures at Kalamunda Hotel. I'm joined by
Kevin Burns.
Kevin Burns. Kevin, what do you do in the local town?
Well, I'm a presenter on the local radio station, Kalamunda Community Radio.
Oh, okay. And people can get in touch with you on the website, or?
They can't on the website, but they can get in touch with us through the telephone on 9293 0548.
Oh, great. Well, that's excellent. It's good to have a local hero on.
It is indeed. Well, I don't know about local hero, because I run it.
Local star. Okay, and what have you brought along today?
I brought along a watch for you to have a look at, and this was a gift given to me by an aunt of mine about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, it's certainly not a cheap watch, is it?
No, certainly not.
No, it's a very nice watch. And on the back here, the first thing we can see is it's 14 karat gold marked. So I wouldn't have thought the band's from the original watch, but these normally come and go. But Le Court watch like that is pretty well known. For one of the areas they were well known for is the Miller Micron, and they were the designers of the very, very fine movements you find inside watches for keeping precision timing. So that's one of its features. It's quite a simple face, but most of the watches around the 1930s were like this. This one actually was made in 1932. They merged with a company called Jaeger, and that's when they merged in 1932, especially because that other Swiss company couldn't design that Miller Micron design tooth, so they ended up merging with another watch company.
So it's a good gift then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a brilliant gift, yeah, very good indeed. And I'd be most happy with it. I'm certainly happy to give you my name if you want to gift it on down the line.
Well, I might do that.
Yeah, that'd be great, I wouldn't say no. So lovely simple gold back on it, all solid gold but very thin gold, and they're labelled on the front Ligure and then on the back Jaeger on the back of the watch. So that's how you tell the watches these days, and they're still well known for making watches in the thousands of dollars. A piece like this we've seen for sale in London for £5,000, but
it's a lot of money. I'll put it back in the safe and I'll take it away tonight.
But it is nice to wear out on special occasions. But I would think realistically on the Australian market we'd probably be talking $2,000 to $3,000 at auction.
Right.
But it's a sort of thing that I think if you went overseas, that's where I'd be carrying it to sell if you ever intended to sell it in some time. But yeah, very nice watch, and a very special gift for someone who must have been very special to the lady.
He was indeed, yes. Still alive and kicking on today, so there we go.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh well, you can see more treasures down at the Kalamunda Hotel, and you can hear Kevin on Kalamunda Radio and tune in and listen
Sunday
to
night,
those.
5 till 7, it's called A Taste of French, Un Soupçon de France, French
Tour de
program.
France. Vivi. Very good. Thank you for coming on.
Well, that concludes another episode of Talking Treasures, a CTV Perth production. We've been filming today at the Old Kalamunda Hotel in Kalamunda, and our experts today have been Matt Donnelly on collectibles, Julie Hayes on jewellery and silverware, Grant Stone on toys and books, and John Stringer on fine arts. Stay tuned next week, we'll have more of Disdain and some exciting news. See you then.